I want to start with a confession. It's something that happens to me, and I suspect it happens to pretty much everyone listening, even if we don't like to admit it.
Mm.
It's that specific moment of self-betrayal, you know the one I'm talking about.
I know well.
You're standing in the kitchen, maybe it's late at night, and you're just staring at an empty wrapper of something you promised yourself you wouldn't eat.
Or you look up from your phone and realize 2 hours have just vanished.
Exactly. And you just have this sinking feeling, this realization, I didn't actually decide to do that.
It's like waking up at the wheel.
Right.
You know you're driving, but you have zero memory of the last 10 miles.
Mm-hmm.
You were there, but nobody was home.
Yes. And it's so frustrating because, I consider myself a disciplined person. I have goals. I have the vision board. I know what I want.
Right.
But then in the heat of the moment, I default. I snap at my partner over a dirty dish. I skip the gym because it's raining. I do the thing I absolutely hate doing. And the question I really want to wrestle with today is simply why? Why do we default to these old patterns even when we intellectually know better?
It is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the answer we're going to explore today is a little uncomfortable.
Okay.
The answer is that in those moments, you aren't actually making a choice. You think you are, but you're not. You're reacting. You're running a script. And there's a massive fundamental difference between choosing your life and just reacting to it.
We are definitely going to dig into that distinction. And to help us navigate this, we're pulling from a really interesting stack of sources today.
We are.
We're anchoring this conversation in a classic text from 1930 by Ernest Holmes called Creative Mind and Success. But, and this is important, we're cross-referencing his philosophy with modern research.
Yeah, things like habit formation, the neuroscience of the basal ganglia, and behavioral psychology.
And the overlap is just striking.
It's incredible, isn't it? You have this philosopher writing nearly 100 years ago about the mechanics of mind, and he's describing things that we can now literally see on an MRI scan.
So what does he call this state of drifting?
He calls it unconscious creation.
Unconscious creation. It sounds a bit mystical, but when you actually read the text, it's quite mechanical.
It's entirely mechanical. The idea is that your mind is a factory that never, ever shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
It's always producing your reality.
Okay.
So if you're not in the manager's office giving specific orders, that's conscious choice. The factory doesn't just stop. It keeps running. It just runs on the old settings.
It runs on the default program.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to figure out how to get back into that manager's office. We want to stop the drift. And I want to be really clear. This is not about beating yourself up for the past.
Not at all. It's about understanding the machinery so you can interrupt the autopilot.
Right. You can't fix a machine if you don't understand how the gears turn.
Precisely.
So here's the roadmap for what we're exploring. We're going to cover 3 specific things. First, we're going to give you the modern definition of right of choice. And I have to warn you, it is probably not what you think it is.
And second, we're going to look at the biology of the reaction loop that keeps you stuck.
And third, we are going to give you a specific tactical tool. It's a technique called the choice point, and it's backed by research on implementation intentions, designed to help you interrupt that loop today.
So you can actually use it.
If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
All right, let's get into the definition.
Let's do it. Because when I hear right of choice, or, man's right of choice, as Holmes puts it, I immediately get a little skeptical. It sounds like that toxic positivity thing, I choose to be a millionaire, or I choose to be happy when my life is falling apart around me. It feels like wishful thinking.
It does.
But looking at the source material and the architecture of mental agency notes we have, that is not what this is about, is it?
No, absolutely not. And I'm so glad you brought up the toxic positivity angle, because that is where people get completely tripped up.
Yeah.
They think choice is a denial of reality. They think it means standing out in the pouring rain and saying, I choose to believe it's sunny. That's delusion. That's psychosis.
Right. If I have a flat tire, I have a flat tire. Standing there affirming my tires are perfect is not a choice. It's just a lie.
Exactly. And Holmes is very clear that we must deal with reality as it is. But he defines choice differently.
Okay, how?
If we translate his, 1930s language into plain English, choice is a 3-part compound. It's direction plus response plus next action.
Okay, let's slow down and unpack that. Direction, response, next action.
So Holmes writes that man is an individual and must choose. He emphasizes that your individuality is defined by your capacity to think actively, not passively.
Okay, so direction is like setting the compass.
That's it, exactly. And response is how you engage with the immediate facts.
Yeah.
And then action is the physical movement that follows.
Okay, let's go back to the flat tire example. How does this three-part definition apply there?
Okay. So the reality is the tire is flat. You can't choose that away.
Yeah.
But you can choose the response.
Right.
The reaction. The default biology might be to scream, kick the car, spiral into this victim narrative like, why does this always happen to me, and ruin your whole week. That's drifting.
That's the thermometer approach. You're just reflecting the temperature of the situation.
Correct. You are a passive product of your environment. But the choice looks completely different.
How so?
It looks like this. You acknowledge the tire is flat. That's the fact. Then you set the direction. I'm going to handle this calmly and get to my meeting.
Yeah.
That's the response. Then you perform the action. You get the jack out of the trunk.
So choice is the lever that sits between the stimulus and the response. It sounds so simple, but in the heat of the moment, it feels impossible.
It does.
Why is it that when the pressure is on, when the tire blows or the boss yells, we almost always default to the reaction?
Well, that's where the biology comes in. We need to talk about the reaction loop versus the choice loop.
Or, as Holmes calls it, the difference between unconscious creation and conscious thought.
That's it. And I found this part of the research just fascinating because Holmes obviously didn't have fMRI machines in 1930, but he describes the mechanism perfectly.
He really does.
In modern neuroscience, we're talking about a battle between two parts of the brain, the basal ganglia and the prefrontal cortex.
Okay, break that down for us. The prefrontal cortex is the smart part, right? The CEO.
Yes, exactly. The prefrontal cortex is the CEO. It handles executive function, logic, long-term planning, impulse control. It is very smart, but it's also very expensive energetically. It tires out easily.
Okay. And the basal ganglia.
The basal ganglia is ancient. It's the habit center. Its primary job is efficiency. Just wants to save energy.
So it records pattern.
It records patterns. When you first learn to drive a car, the prefrontal cortex is working overtime. You're thinking about the pedals, the mirrors, the wheel. But once you know how, the basal ganglia takes over.
Ah, that's why you can drive home and not remember the trip.
It's the autopilot. Exactly. Now, here's the catch.
What's that?
The basal ganglia does not care if a habit is good or bad. It only cares that it is efficient and familiar.
So if your default pattern for stress is eat sugar, the basal ganglia just
It
says.
says stress detected, run script, eat sugar. It is always the path of least resistance.
So when Holmes talks about the race mind or race consciousness, he's basically describing this collective default autopilot.
That is a brilliant way to interpret it.
Yeah.
When he says race mind, he's talking about the accumulated patterns of the human species. Fear, lack, worry, survival.
And if you don't actively use your prefrontal cortex to choose a new pattern,
Your brain defaults to the race mind. It defaults to safety and fear.
that's actually quite terrifying. It means if I'm not actively steering, I'm not just standing still, I'm being pulled downstream by this current of collective anxiety.
Well, Holmes uses the stream of consciousness analogy for exactly this reason. Imagine you're in a boat. If you drop the oars, you don't stay put.
The current takes you.
And the current usually leads to the rocks. To go against the current, to choose, requires you to pick up the oars. And that's the prefrontal cortex. It requires real effort.
And that explains why it feels like physical labor to not yell at someone when you're angry. You're literally fighting your own biological efficiency.
You are. You're burning glucose to override a neural pathway that has been reinforced thousands and thousands of times. But Holmes argues, and I agree, that this labor is the price of freedom.
If you don't do the work, you're just a biological robot reacting to stimuli.
That's it.
Okay, that's the theory. But I want to ground this. We have this high-level concept of reaction versus choice. What does this look like on a random Tuesday?
Right, in real life.
We pulled 3 examples to illustrate this, and I want to walk through them because I think they show just how subtle this drifting really is.
Let's do it.
Okay, example 1 is work. Specifically, the battle between the mood and the obligation. I think everyone knows this one.
Yeah.
You wake up, the alarm goes off, and you just feel heavy. You just don't want to do it.
The classic, I'm not feeling it today syndrome.
Right. And the reaction loop, the basal ganglia, says, avoid pain, seek comfort. So what do? You hit snooze, you call in sick, or you sit at your desk and doom scroll for 2 hours waiting for inspiration.
That is the thermometer approach again. You're letting a temporary chemical, your mood, dictate your entire reality.
So how does the right of choice apply here?
Holmes has a very specific instruction for this. He says the mentally developed person acknowledges the feeling but moves their feet
What's
anyway.
their feet anyway? It sounds so simple, but it completely flips the script.
It does. Most of us think we need to feel good in order to act. We wait for the feeling. Holmes in modern behavioral activation therapy, by the way, says the complete opposite.
You act to change the feeling.
Yes. So in this context, choice is treating action as the physical completion of the thought.
I see.
You make the choice. I'm a productive person. That's your direction. The response is sitting down in the chair. The action is typing the first sentence. You don't wait for the mood to agree with you. You command the mood through action.
Okay, let's look at the second example, relationships. This one really hit me hard when I was reading the source text. Holmes talks about sensitiveness.
Sensitiveness. It is an interesting word choice. Today, we'd probably call it being reactive or defensive or maybe thin-skinned.
Yeah. And the scenario is someone critiques your work, or maybe your partner doesn't text you back instantly, or someone makes a stray comment that feels like a dig.
And the reaction loop kicks in immediately. The ego feels threatened. You feel misunderstood, attacked.
You start spiraling into a narrative. They don't respect me. I'm not good enough. Nobody cares about me.
Holmes calls this uncontrolled sensitiveness a destructive force. He says it just creates chaos in the mind.
But wait, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Isn't it valid to feel hurt? I mean, if someone is rude to me, am I just supposed to suppress that and pretend I'm a robot? That feels like repression, not choice.
That is a crucial distinction. We're not talking about repression. Repression is shoving the feeling down and pretending it isn't there.
Okay.
Choice is about interpretation. Holmes writes, stay right in the world and still think just what we want to think.
Think just what we want to think. What does that mean in practice?
It means, I see that you're being rude. I feel the sting of it. But I choose not to let your rudeness define my internal state.
Oh.
I can choose to interpret your behavior as you are having a bad day, rather than I am worthless. I am protecting my peace. I'm deciding my internal stability is more important than your external validation.
So it's about agency. It's refusing to hand over the remote control of my emotions to somebody else.
Exactly. If I get offended every time someone is clumsy with their words, I'm a puppet. They pull the string. I dance. Choice is cutting the string.
Okay, third example, money or habits in general. We pulled a little bit from the I will teach you to be rich context here because it just fits so perfectly with Holmes's idea of scarcity.
Yeah, it does. The scenario here is spending money. And the reaction loop is just mindless spending.
The latte, the takeout, the gadgets.
And at the end of the month, you look at your statement and wonder where it all went. You feel completely out of control.
And then comes the guilt, I'm bad with money, I'll never get ahead.
And that is the scarcity mindset loop. You feel out of control, so you act out of control, which then proves you're out of control. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So what's the choice loop in this case?
It's what Sethi would call conscious spending, and what Holmes would call giving the law a definite pattern.
So making the decision before the purchase.
Yes. It's saying, I am an investor in my own life. You might choose to spend extravagantly on things you love, like travel or hobbies, but you cut ruthlessly on the things you don't.
So instead of money just leaking out of your pocket, you're actively directing it.
You're giving it an instruction. Holmes says the universe, and your bank account, responds to clear instructions. Mindless spending is a lack of instruction. It's just chaos.
I love that phrasing. Mindless spending is a lack of instruction. Okay, so we have the definition, we have the examples, but I want to get tactical.
Good.
Because catching yourself in that moment, in that split second before you yell or eat the cookie, that is incredibly hard.
It's the hardest part. The gap between stimulus and response is often just milliseconds long. If you wait until you're in the situation to make a choice, you will lose. The basal ganglia is always faster than you are.
So we need to cheat. We need to prepare beforehand.
We do. We need a tool to widen that gap. And we're calling this exercise the choice point. It's based on research by Peter Gollwitzer from the 90s on something called implementation intentions.
This is the if-then planning, right?
Yes. Gollwitzer found that people who simply intended to reach a goal often failed. But people who created a specific if-then plan,
they were much more successful.
2 to 3 times more likely to succeed. Why? Because they preloaded the decision. They made the choice before the stress kicked in.
Okay, so let's walk through the exercise. If you're listening, you can do this right now. It has 4 steps. Step 1, name the trigger.
And you have to be forensic here. Don't just say, I want to eat healthier. It's way too vague.
You need the specific moment.
The specific moment that trips you up. For example, when I walk into the kitchen after work and see the pantry door, that's a trigger. Or when I open an email from my boss that says urgent.
Okay. Step 2. Name the old reaction.
Be brutally honest. Shine a light on the vampire. When I see the pantry door, I immediately grab the bag of chips and eat them standing up.
Or when I see the urgent email, I feel a knot in my stomach and start looking for an excuse.
Right. You have to acknowledge the script that you're currently running.
Step 3. Choose the new response. And this has to be a very specific instruction, right?
Yes. Holmes talks about creating a mental equivalent. You need a clear, simple image. It can't be, I will try to be better. It needs to be an algorithm.
For example,
If I walk into the kitchen, then I will drink a glass of water and take a deep breath. Or if I see the email, then I will open it and read it slowly twice before typing.
it's like coding a computer. If X, then Y. And finally, step 4. Choose one small next action today.
This is so crucial, you cannot just think it. You have to ground it in the physical world. Holmes says thought must become manifest.
So what's the physical proof?
If your new response is drinking water, then put a clean glass on the counter right now. If your response is reading the email slowly, write read twice on a Post-it note and stick it to your monitor.
You're setting the stage for your future self. You're making it easier for your prefrontal cortex to win the battle.
Exactly. You are hacking the loop. You're removing the friction from the good choice and adding friction to the bad one.
Now, I want to pivot to troubleshooting. Because this all sounds great, just make a plan. But in reality, people get stuck.
They do.
We looked at the architecture of mental agency notes, and there are some common traps people fall into when they try to apply this.
And these are the traps that make people give up.
The first one is magical thinking. And honestly, this is the one that gives manifesting a bad name.
It is. People read Holmes or any New Thought author, and they think, okay, I just need to sit on my couch and visualize a Ferrari, and it will appear in my driveway.
And when it doesn't, they say the whole philosophy is garbage.
Right. But Holmes is crystal clear. We must act. Action is the channel for the thought. If you choose a new career, visualizing it is the direction. But sending the emails and making the calls is the response. You cannot bypass the physical world.
Action is the physical completion of the thought. That's a heavy concept. It implies a thought isn't really real until it moves something in the physical world.
That is exactly right. Until you act, it is just a daydream.
Okay, trap number 2. Worrying about the how. This is where I get stuck all the time. I know what I want, say, to be debt-free, but I look at the math and I just don't see how it's possible. So I freeze. I don't make the choice because I can't see the path.
This paralyzes so many intelligent people.
Yeah.
We think we need the entire roadmap before we can even leave the driveway.
Yeah.
Holmes divides the labor here. He says your job is the what? The goal. The instruction. The how is the domain of the law, or, if you prefer, the subconscious mind finding patterns that you can't see yet.
So if I obsess over the how, I'm actually strangling the why.
Yes. If you demand to know exactly how the money will come before you decide to be wealthy, you will never decide. You have to set the destination first. The GPS doesn't give you directions until you type in the address.
That's a great analogy. Okay, trap number 3, checking for results too soon. This is the gardener digging up the seeds every day.
We live in such an instant gratification culture. We want the result yesterday. But nature has a gestation period. Holmes talks about the time lag. And modern habit research backs this up. It takes, anywhere from 66 days to 8 months to fully form a habit.
So if you make a new choice on Monday and don't feel like a different person by Wednesday, you assume it didn't work.
I tried being positive for 2 days and I'm still broke. Exactly. It is working. The concrete is wet. You just have to stop touching it and let it set.
Consistency beats intensity.
Every single time.
Trap number 4, double-mindedness. This is all about alignment.
You cannot spend 20 minutes in the morning affirming, I am successful and confident, and then spend your entire lunch break complaining to your coworker about how the industry is dying and you're totally doomed.
You're canceling out your own order.
You're sending mixed signal to the machine. Your speech and your actions need to align with your choice 100% of the time. Or at least you need to catch yourself when they don't and correct it immediately.
And the last mistake, and I think this is the deepest one emotionally, feeling unworthy. Who am I to choose this?
This is the biggest block for so many people. We feel that we just don't deserve the good life because we've made mistakes or we've been drifting for years.
So what's the antidote to that shame?
Logic. Holmes emphasizes that the universe is impersonal. Electricity doesn't care if you're a saint or a sinner. If you plug in the lamp, it gives you light.
Gravity doesn't care if you're a good person. It holds you to the earth regardless.
The law of mind is exactly the same. It doesn't judge you. It just responds to your input.
That is incredibly liberating. It takes all the morality out of it. It's just mechanics.
It is just mechanics. You don't have to be worthy to build a house. You just have to be a competent architect.
I love that. You are the architect. Okay, we have covered a huge amount of ground today, from the basal ganglia to the philosophy of the 1930s. Let's try to distill this all down.
Let's do a rapid-fire recap. 7 points to really lock this in.
Okay. Number 1, choice is direction plus response plus action. It is not just a wish.
Number 2, if you don't choose, your biology chooses for you. That is the reaction loop.
Number 3, the universe is a neutral system that just executes your instructions.
Number 4, you must interrupt the reaction loop at the choice point.
Number 5, action validates the choice. You cannot just hope.
Number 6, consistency beats intensity. Don't dig up the seeds to see if they are growing.
And number 7, you are the architect, not the victim.
That is the bottom line.
So what does this all mean for you? It means that the next time you feel that trigger, the stress, the boredom, the offense, you have a superpower in your back pocket. You can pause. You can spot the autopilot script. And you can choose to run a new code.
And here's the tease for where we are going next. Now that we know how to choose, we need to understand the machine that processes that choice.
Right. Once you pull the lever, what happens?
How does the what actually become the how?
That is the perfect setup. In our next session, episode 8, we are tackling the law of cause and effect. We're going to look at exactly how the machine processes your instructions and why the feedback loop is always perfect, even when we don't like the results.
It is going to be the technical manual for the mind.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you won't miss the next episode.